It is really early. It's a little after 5 and I am heading to 6 a.m. Jiu Jitsu. I normally don't train this early. I'm a morning person, but I like to relax when I first wake up in the morning, drink my coffee. This is going to be not relaxing. I don't know if you guys ever take any 6 a.m. Jiu Jitsu classes, but just thinking about the amount of energy that I'm going to expend in the next 40 minutes kind of makes me want to cry. The sun is really beautiful right now. The sky is so pretty. So pretty. So anyway, I have a pretty busy day today, so I figured let me just get my training in early, let me get it done, and then later when I'm super busy, I don't have to worry about whether I can possibly fit in my training in the evening or not. So here we are. 6 a.m. Jiu Jitsu. Let's do this. Don't worry, guys. I survived the 6 a.m. It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty nice. The sun was shining through these huge windows that my gym has, so it was actually pretty nice. I will say I feel like I have a little more pep in my step in the evening classes, but I feel like the 6 a.m. wasn't that bad. I didn't die, and it was actually like a pretty good time. I think it's also a little bit easier now because it's bright out at like 5:30 in the morning when I'm getting up and heading to the gym versus in the winter when it's cold and pitch black. It is so rough to make it to the 6 a.m. So now it's a little bit easier in the summertime. So the topic that I want to talk about today is something that I used to struggle with a lot. I feel like when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was literally my own worst enemy. I think I made my jiu-jitsu journey that much harder because I was so hard on myself and I would get extremely frustrated with myself. So today we are going to talk about frustration and how to not so much overcome it, because I don't think you overcome getting frustrated. I think you just learn how to deal with it better. So today we're going to talk about how to work through your frustration so that your jiu-jitsu journey is a little bit more enjoyable. Now, of course, it's normal to get frustrated. We are human and jiu-jitsu is really freaking hard, but I used to get so frustrated and I used to get so down on myself. I mentioned this before in a previous video when I used to train with my boyfriend when I was a beginner. And again, I've mentioned this. He's like 215, 220 pounds. He's a black belt. Obviously, I will never be able to do anything to him in a roll unless he lets me. But I think when I was a beginner, I just didn't understand that. And not only did I lack every kind of skill in jiu-jitsu, I'm also like 80 pounds lighter than him. And I would just get so frustrated that nothing would work. And I would try to use like all my strength and I would just end up leaving the roll in tears, and I would be so mad at him. And he was such a saint because he would deal with me and he wouldn't get mad at me, but then I would spend like the rest of the afternoon mad at him. Meanwhile, I was really just frustrated at myself for no reason. There would even be other times when I was just training with my teammates, and if someone was, say, 15 or 20 pounds heavier, I would get so frustrated that I couldn't do anything because they were heavier than me, or if they were more aggressive than me. Like, no, Kim, you can't do anything to them because you suck at jiu-jitsu. You're just a beginner and you have no idea what you're doing. Other times in competition, if I would lose, I would shake my opponent's hand, shake their coach's hand, and then I would just storm off the mat and almost be in tears because I freaking lost. And it was at like a grappling industries. It's not like it was the world championship, but I would just get so frustrated with myself. And I think I was kind of developing, or I had already developed, this victim mentality where I would blame everybody else for my shortcomings. So needless to say, I had a lot of growing to do and a lot of maturing to do in my jiu-jitsu journey. And I really had to work on how to not get so freaking frustrated at myself. Like, it's serious, but it's not that serious. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I am by no means perfect, but I do think that I have grown up a little bit in my jiu-jitsu life. So I want to share with you a few tips on how to work through those frustrations of yours, because it's going to make your jiu-jitsu life, your jiu-jitsu journey, and your overall life a lot happier. Piece of advice number 1. I think this is the most important piece of advice. It is something that my boyfriend used to tell me all the freaking time. Be patient with yourself, especially if you're a beginner. Jiu-jitsu is a long journey, and hopefully it's a journey that will never end for you, but it definitely 100% absolutely requires a lot of patience. You know, if you're a beginner to jiu-jitsu and you're a month or a couple of months in and every technique that you learn is really difficult and you're not understanding anything and you're rolling and nothing is working and you can't figure out how to do certain things, that's okay. That is how it's supposed to be. Be patient with yourself. The majority of the beginning of your jiu-jitsu journey will be surviving. And once you learn how to survive, then you can start working. But seriously, be patient with yourself. Keep working hard. Keep going to class. You will get there. Eventually, you will understand the movements. Eventually, they will start to work when you roll and when you compete. So be patient. It is an amazing skill to develop. Piece of advice number 2, break it down. If you're having trouble with a certain movement when you're rolling, take a step back and break down the movement. For example, if you find yourself getting stuck in people's closed guards in a roll and you can't figure out for the life of you how to get the heck out of there, take a step back, break down the movement, and figure out 1, why you're getting there all the time in the first place. 2, figure out where your hands are, your feet, your toes, your hips, how your posture is. All of these little tiny details matter. Break down the movement, break down the process in how you're getting there, and you'll find that maybe all of these tiny details that you were missing is the reason why you're having so much trouble. If you competed and you lost a match, or you lost in the finals, or you didn't make it to the podium at all, whatever the case is, take a step back and try to figure out what happened along the way to lead to you not bringing home the gold. Don't just leave the tournament and be like, I lost, I suck at jiu-jitsu, I'm never competing again, and I hate everything. That's definitely not the attitude you want. Try to figure out what happened in the process. Were you pushing yourself in training as hard as you possibly could? Was your diet on point? Were you fueling your body properly in training? Were you getting enough sleep? Were you drilling the movements that you wanted to try out in the competition? Not only were you as physically prepared as possible, were you as mentally prepared as possible? Were you in the best possible mental state for you to go out there and put your jiu-jitsu on the line in front of an audience? It's a lot different out there than in the training room. So all of these, again, little tiny details, they matter. So whatever it is you're dealing with in your jiu-jitsu, take a step back, process it, and try to break down whatever is going on step by step so you can figure out the tiny details and eventually get to the bottom of how you can better yourself. Piece of advice number 3. Okay, so when you're giving advice to someone and you realize that you really need to take your own advice, this is an example of that. The next tip that I have for you is to keep a jiu-jitsu journal. I do not keep a jiu-jitsu journal. My boyfriend has been telling me to do this since the day that I started. But I'm always just like,
I don't have the time, I don't feel like it, blah, 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 blah.
But I really need to, I really should, and so should you. The reason is, if you write it down and you get your thoughts out and you get your issues down on paper, sometimes it helps you to kind of figure it out easier that way, versus keeping it all locked up and bottled up inside your head where nothing is making sense. Sometimes if you just get it down on paper, stuff can make a little bit more sense. Also, what I love love about the idea of keeping a jiu-jitsu journal is you can look back on it months or years later and you can see just how much you've grown. So in the 4.5 years that I've been training, I have written down one entry in a jiu-jitsu journal, okay? And sometimes I look back on it and I'm like, wow, times were just so different then. I wrote it down probably a month or so into training, so I'm gonna read a little snippet of it for you guys. Okay, so this was January 3rd of 2017, so I was brand new to jiu-jitsu, and it's pretty long, so I'm just gonna read a little bit in the beginning and then a little piece towards the end. So I started with, today was my first class with Brandon, who was the head instructor at the time. I was slightly intimidated, being that it was my first class without Todd there. Todd is my boyfriend. And at that time, I was only taking his classes, only training with him because I just felt comfortable that way. Blah, 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 blah. And then towards the end, I talked about, then I rolled with a blue belt. Crap. I was sitting out and he asked me if I wanted to train. Basically, he did a bunch of stuff that happened out of nowhere and I couldn't even see it coming. One good thing was I squirmed my way out of a submission. I also attempted to take the back. Other than that, I don't remember how many times I tapped out today, but I think I'm getting used to that too. And then right at the end of this entry, I wrote down some positives and then I wrote down some negatives. Positives, I'm getting comfortable with going to class. I'm getting comfortable with rolling with different people. I'm noticing myself catching submissions and trying to get out of them. Negatives, literally trying to survive, trying to just breathe while my head is getting squished. My cardio sucks. Everything hurts. That is the truth right there. Big facts. Everything hurts. Everything still hurts. But see, like, I think it's so funny and cute that I was going through all of these things that I do not go through and feel now. And honestly, I wish I did more of those entries when I was a beginner and all throughout my journey so far, so that I can look back and really see how much I've grown, because everything that I mentioned there, for the most part, I don't really deal with anymore. So if you're just starting, if you're a beginner, I strongly encourage you to get a journal, get a real journal, do it on your computer, do it in your phone, whatever you want to do, and just jot down some notes after class, before a competition, after a competition. This way you have written down issues that you're dealing with, and then down the line you can see how much you've grown, how you have resolved those issues, and probably how you don't even deal with those issues anymore. My last piece of advice for you is to talk to someone, whether it's your coach, your teammate, your significant other, especially if they do jiu-jitsu. You can talk to me, but talk to someone who has an understanding possibly of what you're going through and what issue you're dealing with. Remember, your coaches are there for you. They are there for you to talk to them. They're there to teach you. They've already been through everything that you probably are going to go through and are currently going through. For me, like, my main support system has been my boyfriend, because everything that I have gone through, well, not everything, because he's a boy and I'm a girl, so I've dealt with some different issues in jiu-jitsu than he has. But as far as training, technique, competing, all that kind of stuff, he's already gone through. So I am very fortunate to have had him throughout my journey so far. I definitely encourage you to find someone that you trust, find someone that you can talk to, because it will absolutely help to hear somebody else's opinion and somebody else's perspective. So that is all I've got for you today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate all of the video likes, all of my new subscribers, every comment that I get. I read every single one of them and I try to respond to all of you guys. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. If there is another topic that I haven't covered and you want to see, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And until the next video, I will see you guys next time.